Tonight, Donald Trump's opaque message for Canada on the CUSMA trade agreement.
We'll either let it expire or we'll maybe work out another deal.
Why so many in the U.S. want to keep it. Details revealed on lobbying efforts by Tim Hortons for more temporary foreign workers.
It's actually very predictable that they would request higher caps, easier ability to hire temporary foreign workers.
New hopes in dementia treatment. The Shingles vaccine may slow its progress.
Which is truly a remarkable finding.
From CBC News, this is The National with Erica Johnson.
Thanks for joining us. Adrian is on assignment. As the Trump administration prepares to review CUSMA, the North American pact anchoring the largest free trade zone in the world, U.S. business and policy leaders flock to Washington for a public hearing in front of officials. Overwhelmingly, they defended the deal, an island of stability in a sea of uncertainty. But even as Donald Trump's officials heard their arguments, Trump himself raised the prospect of letting CUSMA expire. The hearing was behind closed doors, but Katie Simpson was there to see American businesses singing a very different tune than the White House.
U.S. President Donald Trump injecting more uncertainty into his trading agenda, casting some doubt around the future of CUSMA when asked what he's thinking about a possible renegotiation.
You know, that's just an ongoing thing. It expires in about a year, and we'll either let it expire or we'll maybe work out another deal with Mexico and Canada. But look, Mexico and Canada have taken advantage of the United States, like just about every other country.
Trump's framing is off. CUSMA does not expire in a year, but the trade agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico will be reviewed and likely revised starting next June. In Washington, behind closed doors, high-stakes consultation hearings are now underway. Industry, business leaders, and experts telling the Trump administration what they think about the deal, which is also known here as USMCA.
We believe that the USMCA should be renewed, that tariff-free access between all three of our countries for produce is vital.
USMCA provides stability and predictability for North America, especially in an increasingly volatile global order.
Trump is expected to demand concessions from Canada and Mexico during the review process, after long complaining about his trading partners.
I think the president may issue threats.
Brian Clow led Canada-U.S. relations for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He says there could be more tariffs or renewed threats to blow up the deal, and Canadians should brace for uncertainty.
This is the firing of the starting gun for that review, which I think is going to be rocky, lengthy, and probably messy at times.
Trump has used tariffs as leverage in trade talks before, and it's very clear he likes the tariffs already in place. At that Oval Office event, an announcement about lowering auto emission standards, he welcomed and celebrated the head of Stellantis, which is moving some operations from Canada to the U.S. Trump sees that as a big win, even if tariffs are helping fuel an affordability crisis in America.
And Katie, there were complaints about those tariffs in the closed-door hearings.
Yeah, some of the agriculture representatives say the sector-based tariffs are harmful as farmers can get caught up in the retaliation. Most of the testimony so far was very pro-USMCA, or CUSMA, as we call it in Canada, with 2 more days of testimony to go.
Thanks for this. Katie Simpson in Washington. Minnesota's Twin Cities are bracing for a surge of ICE agents targeting the Somali community. This as Donald Trump continued his insults. Katie Nicholson now with his message and the pushback.
That beautiful land, that beautiful state, it's a hellhole right now.
In the Oval Office, a second tirade.
The Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country. And all they do is complain every year.
This on the heels of Tuesday's rant in which he attacked Somalia.
Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country.
And a Democratic representative who was born there.
Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage.
These words as ICE steps up activity in Minnesota, targeting the undocumented in the largest Somali community in the country. The condemnation was swift.
Over 51% of the Somali community were born here. which means the ICE raids will have significantly be actually used as a weapon to terrorize the community.
A terror that has already rippled through Minneapolis.
I've been here since 1994. I was only 3 years old when I came, and this is my home, and this has got to stop.
Trump accused Somalis of defrauding Minnesota of billions of dollars. It is true that dozens of Somalis were charged in a fraud scheme involving a COVID-era child hunger fund. But they were mostly U.S. citizens, and the alleged ringleader is white. Trump's blanket statements forcing Somalis to defend their honor.
I don't steal any money. I'm working. I've been in America 26 years. I have my own house. I don't do nothing. So all the Somalians, they're not bad.
The new ICE influx getting a chilly reception, including from police.
We are not participating at all in any kind of, immigration enforcement activity.
As for Trump's repeated comments about Representative Omar, this response.
What is weird to me is just how creepy he's been obsessed with me and the Somali community.
Unwanted attention for Omar and the community she represents. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
With the status of his push for peace in Ukraine unclear, Donald Trump suggested his envoy's latest trip to Moscow was productive.
President Putin had a very good meeting yesterday with Jared Kushner and with Steve Witkoff. What comes out of that meeting, I can't tell you.
But the Kremlin suggests it isn't getting enough territory as it steps up attacks from the air, tonight pounding a frontline city. And on the ground around the eastern city of Pokrovsk, where it threatens to cut off the last routes of escape. Ukraine's NATO allies, Canada included, are pledging more money to buy weapons for Kyiv.
Canada's contribution will be $200 million.
While the EU moves ahead with a plan to use frozen Russian assets to back a loan for Ukraine.
We can equip them with the means to defend themselves and to lead peace negotiations from a position of strength.
Ukraine's president said he's sending negotiators to the U.S. for the next round of talks. New research has linked a shingles vaccine to slowing down the advance of dementia and even helping patients live longer. In Canada, they number 750,000. Christine Birak shows us the encouraging evidence.
First, scientists said the shingles shot could cut dementia risk. Now they say it could do even more.
In people who have established dementia, it prevents progression or slows progression of the disease, which is truly a remarkable finding.
The newly published paper on the effect of shingles vaccination reports researchers analyzed health records of more than 200,000 people aged 79 and 80 in Wales. Those born before a specific cutoff date were offered a free shingles vaccine, while those born just days later were not. While observational, scientists compared these two nearly identical groups, one vaccinated, one not. Findings suggest the shingles vaccine not only reduced the risk of developing dementia, but also slowed disease progression and ultimately lowered the risk of dying from dementia.
I think there will be further studies that are needed in order to making sure that this particular observation, this relationship, is it truly causal or not.
It's also not clear why it might be protective, but doctors do have some ideas.
The first is that it is directly related to the virus that causes chickenpox and shingles.
Shingles is a painful rash caused by reactivation of the chickenpox virus. Preventing this reactivation may reduce brain inflammation and lower dementia risk.
I started to see signs and symptoms when I was quite young.
Phyllis Fuhrer was 48. When we met her nearly a decade ago, she was working to maintain her focus, attention, and memory. Now 66, she hopes the vaccine has helped her.
This study is so hopeful to me because you know what? With my grandmother and my mother having it, now I have it, I worry about my kids. And if this vaccine could prevent or, slow down for my kids, because chances are they're going to get it, wouldn't that be amazing?
To keep your brain healthy, doctors often recommend exercise, a hearing test, and staying social. Some say they'll now add shingles vaccine to that list. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Tim Hortons is urging Ottawa to lift its cap on temporary foreign workers. CBC News has learned that the coffee giant has been lobbying federal leaders for more than a year. Rafi Boudjikanian now with their plea and the political response.
The official opposition renewing a call to axe the temporary foreign worker program.
I'm sorry, I can't believe that there aren't Canadians across the country that won't do these jobs.
This after CBC News revealed coffee giant Tim Hortons is pushing to hire more temporary foreign workers, or TFWs. In late October, it held lobbying meetings with Liberal, Bloc Québécois and Conservative MPs, making the case to renew expiring work permits faster, according to former Immigration Minister Mark Miller. The Bloc's Alexis Brunel-Duceppe says in July they were looking to raise the existing cap on TFWs in his writing from 10 to 20% of employees.
It's actually very predictable that they would request higher caps, higher ability, easier ability to hire temporary foreign workers. I'm not surprised at all.
But caps are not the main concern for this professor. She says foreign workers are prone to exploitation by employers, and that's where Ottawa needs to act.
We need a much more robust system for ensuring that employment standards are upheld.
Ottawa did make changes in August of 2024, but Tim Hortons' lobbying efforts go back further. In May of last year, a company representative wrote a letter to Mark Miller, released under an access to information request, asking him to bump the cap up from 20 to 30%, arguing the cost of being in business continues to rise and it is more challenging to hire in many markets. Tim Hortons says most of its 100,000 employees are local hires, but it needs TFWs to fill gaps in smaller and rural communities.
As an employer, I have a vision. I need people, and they're here as a temporary foreign worker.
The government says it cannot predict future policy decisions, but it did design the TFW program with flexibility in mind. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
More bad news for hundreds of residents forced from their homes almost a week ago by a stubborn fire in a Toronto condo complex.
Evacuation will continue at least into next week.
Already 6 days into the battle, firefighters are struggling to get to the burning material, which is sandwiched between two adjoining buildings. A little later in the hour, we'll examine why crews are having so much trouble. Chaos has erupted inside the BC Conservative Party, and it is not clear tonight exactly who's in charge and therefore who the leader of the official opposition is. As Tanya Fletcher explains, the party says one thing, John Rustad says another.
We're in some pretty incredible, unprecedented times.
The disputed new leader of the BC Conservatives describing a day filled with confusion. It all started when 20 of the party's 39 MLAs said they'd lost confidence in their leader, John Rustad. Then the BC Conservative Party announced a majority of caucus no longer supported Rustad, and that triggered a caucus vote selecting an interim leader, Trevor Halford, to replace him.
I think it's pretty apparent to British Columbians that we're not on a steady course, and we absolutely need to steady the ship here in BC.
The party's constitution lays out 4 ways a leader can be removed: by resignation, death, incapacitation, or a failed leadership review vote. In this case, the party is citing professional incapacitation, to which Rustad says,
"Well, I'm currently still the leader of the party. Nothing has changed since we discussed this morning."
Adding on social media, quote, "A political party's board can throw around whatever creative terminology they like. Professional incapacitation? Give me a break. Let me be clear, that's not a constitutional mechanism."
Who do you consider to be the leader of your party?
Right now, it's John Rustad.
And do you hope he stays?
Well, of course.
Signs of a party divided. In the provincial election about a year ago, Rustad led the newly formed Conservatives to within 3 seats of victory. But since then, inner conflicts and complaints about his leadership have been building. 3 MLAs quit, 2 others he ousted.
I think he tried to play the ends against the middle. You've ousted some on the far right, ousted some on the other side of the party, evidently to no avail. And which brings us to today.
I'm not stepping down, guys.
A day where the political fallout is as murky as the leadership itself. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
An intense debate is underway tonight on the future of First Nations child welfare. A breakaway group of chiefs and activists is proposing a framework to remake the system ahead of an approaching deadline. Olivia Stefanovic shows us why they're keen to take this matter out of government hands.
Canada stopping its discrimination.
They want the fate of their children in their hands.
It's time for Canada to put down its sword and stop fighting our kids in court.
First Nations are choosing their own path to reform the child welfare system on reserves.
We have to ensure that it stands the test of time.
Even as the federal government stares down a court-ordered deadline to come up with its own latest plan.
We will complete the crucial work.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is promising a lasting fix.
Our approach to child welfare will be First Nations-led, community-led, and it will be supported by significant additional funding.
But a group of First Nations leaders and children's advocates is adamant they can't trust the Prime Minister after the federal government underfunded First Nations child and family services for decades.
Is it possible that you will be able to create one plan within the next couple of weeks and come together? Do you have any confidence that will happen?
No. Their $50 billion plan proposes limiting Canada's decision-making and securing long-term funding, not subject to annual reviews. A crucial commitment that was missing last year, say leaders of the Assembly of First Nations, when they voted down the previous Liberal government's reform offer of more than $47 billion.
They just do piecemeal policy off the back of a napkin, and that always results in harms for kids.
The Indigenous Services Minister says she's determined to bring the two sides together.
Every day that we spend discussing the technicalities of an agreement is another day that a child is in care.
But as it stands, both sides are set to file competing proposals by December 22nd, the deadline set by the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal for another long-term reform plan. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
Air Transat pilots have voted 99% in favor of striking as early as December 10th if their union can't reach a new contract deal with the airline. The two sides have been in talks since January. Pilots are looking for more job security and compensation. Air Transat says it's still committed to bargaining and is confident a deal will be reached. People across Atlantic Canada are dealing with the aftermath of a major winter storm tonight.
Bunch of other trucks and cars started spinning out.
How they're coping with that nor'easter that closed schools and roads. Next. Plus, could singing help the recovery from a stroke?
It's just so magical to see how much music brings life back.
The new musical study, looking for answers. And later, a PEI family brightens things up to honor their father.
It really gives us a lot of comfort.
How they're keeping a Christmas tradition alive. We're back in 2.
What do you think would be justified for today?
A doctor who sold ketamine to actor Matthew Perry weeks before his 2023 overdose death has been sentenced to 30 months in prison. Salvador Plasencia pleaded guilty earlier this year to illegally distributing the surgical anesthetic. The California doctor is the first person linked to the case to be sentenced. Right across Atlantic Canada, many are digging out tonight after a blustery nor'easter blew through. As Selena Alders shows us, it left the roads treacherous and many kids at home.
On this mountainous stretch of the Trans-Canada Highway in Nova Scotia, tow crews worked through the snow to keep traffic moving.
We got a jackknife purelator 18-wheeler that started off, and then a bunch of other trucks and cars started spinning out.
Whiteout conditions forced the closure of a major section of the highway, the only road link into New Brunswick. Many schools across the region shut down as well, including all schools on Prince Edward Island. The nor'easter swept in from the United States, where hazardous conditions sent dozens of cars off the roads. The storm even led to this harrowing scene in West Virginia, where a truck driver was rescued from inside his cab after it went over the side of a bridge. In Newfoundland, up to 30 centimeters of snow fell in some places, and many drivers were scrambling for last-minute winter tire appointments.
It's pretty crazy. There's a lot of cars there for tire changes and not enough time in the day.
Still, many are embracing this first real taste of winter.
We're just enjoying the first snow of the year. It's amazing. Like the whole city is just white and it's amazing.
It's not so bad, is it? We're in Newfoundland, not Disneyland, right?
Others took in the novelty while it lasts.
It's the first snow. It's nice, it's beautiful. We'll get sick of it eventually.
As the storm moves out and crews clean up, Atlantic Canadians are now bracing for a cold snap in the coming days. A reminder that winter is only just getting started. Selena Alders, CBC News, Halifax.
A choir is testing out a theory that music can be medicine.
Doing this in this broader choir-like context, in this social context, is something new.
How it could boost recovery from a stroke. Plus, recent market movements spark new worries about the AI bubble.
It matters because we're already into the trillions of dollars that are, I argue, are being metastasized across the economy.
And Toronto is facing one of the most complex fires in its history. Why the flames are so hard to put out.
I have spoken to colleagues across North America, and they have never experienced a fire like this.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next.
Well, Victoria, what an honor. May I welcome you here.
A celebrity visit to the Prime Minister's office today. Canadian tennis star Victoria Mboko stopped by with the trophy she won at the National Bank Open this summer in Montreal. And with something else.
This is the racket I used during the National Bank Open.
No way.
Yeah, well, we could have got a new one, but I kind of wanted to make it more authentic. I don't know.
Wow.
Carney says that signed winning racket will be given a place of pride. The sounds of music and hope are ringing through a very special choir in Montreal. As Alison Northcott shows us, it's testing out a theory that could help stroke patients who've lost some of their abilities to communicate.
Singing together gives members of this choir a chance to use their voices. The singers have all suffered strokes and have developed a condition called aphasia, which affects the ability to speak. Now they're part of a study to see if singing can help their recovery.
We are hoping that this study will demonstrate that choir activity is really good for people, good for their language, but good for their social relation too.
The randomized controlled trial has sites in Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and Tampa Bay, Florida. The study involves 12 choir sessions for each group. Serge Belancic has had trouble writing and finding his words since his stroke in 2022. He hopes this study leads to more treatment options.
I like because it gives me occasion to speak, you see, and to find my old voice.
Researchers monitor heart rates and vocal range. It will take a few months for researchers to go through the data and determine if group singing helps improve language skills and quality of life for people with aphasia. Previous research suggests music may help parts of the brain not damaged by a stroke to improve communication through rhythm and pitch.
You want to make sure that...
But more studies are needed, says this stroke neurologist.
There is definitely evidence that these kind of therapies can work, and we will have to see how these trials will end up.
When they start singing, you could just see the soul free up, and it's just so magical to see how much music brings life back.
Belancic is optimistic and hopes others with his condition can one day benefit from an activity like this too.
Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. An unprecedented challenge for Toronto firefighters 6 days into battling a fire in a 400-unit apartment complex.
Our goal from Toronto Fire Services is to extinguish this fire as quickly as possible.
Why that may be easier said than done. But first.
A roller coaster ride, global stocks headed for their worst week since April.
Panic for investors as a drop in the markets led mainly by tech stocks have some fearing an AI bubble is about to burst. Andrew Chang, host of About That, explains what's fueling those fears and breaks down the key factors that could knock the air out of inflated stock prices.
If you were to just look at the stock market these days, you might infer AI as an industry isn't doing so great.
A roller coaster ride, global stocks headed for their worst week since April.
Let's head to Wall Street, where the Dow ends another day in the red, down nearly 500 points.
Now, perspective, right? All the panic right now is over a relatively small drop compared to, say, the drop we saw when Trump's tariffs slammed headfirst into the global economy.
Reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world, reciprocal.
And especially compared to the absolutely bonkers growth we've seen in American stocks since the launch of ChatGPT 3 years ago. Which, yes, we can correlate these two things, stocks and AI, because, and this is crazy, more than a third of stock value on America's main stock index, the S&P 500, comes from just 7 tech companies, all heavily invested in AI. But that little crest of the mountain, is that a hiccup towards more gains or the start of a downward slope? It has the world wondering if we're about to see a big pop of the AI
bubble. AI bubble.
AI bubble. Because it's not just sky-high stock market valuations that are making everybody's minds go. You also have to follow the money and how it goes round and round in circles. So let's make this real. NVIDIA wasn't always the most valuable company in the world. In its earliest form, it was known more for powering graphics cards in gaming computers. So 20 years ago, a partnership with Sony felt like a big deal. But a major evolution was also underway, using its high-performance chips not only in graphics processing, but increasingly in general-purpose computing, raw math. And in a world that would soon find itself starving for this raw computational power, NVIDIA began to identify much more lucrative markets: data, generative AI, the kind of horsepower it had spent 30+ years building and refining in these tiny chips. Now, the company's worth well over $4 trillion US because its supercharged chips power about 90% of the world's AI projects. But as NVIDIA's value kept climbing on the stock market, investors started to wonder how the company was spending its money and whether some of its investments were actually genuine investments at all. I can explain by way of example. Imagine SpaceX announces a massive $100 billion investment in Crayola. Classic synergistic partnership between rocket engineers and children's art supplies. This investment inspires Crayola to develop, jet fuel crayons that can color things by themselves. So this is an investment that creates new value. Shareholders get excited, SpaceX and Crayola see their stock prices shoot up. But in NVIDIA's case, back in September, it pledged $100 billion US to OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT. But guess where these kinds of large language models get their processing power? That's right, from NVIDIA chips, which OpenAI has agreed to buy or lease using the money received from NVIDIA in the first place. So as the stock price of both NVIDIA and OpenAI continues to go up and up and up, at least partially on the heels of all of this movement, money, momentum, the question investors are asking, is NVIDIA simply paying itself?
So it's essentially giving a customer money to exclusively buy your products. So it's not really fair to call it an investment. It's really just a way of kind of forwarding money to your customer so they in turn can come back and buy your products.
I won't go through each and every single deal between each and every single company because other news organizations have done a lot of that reporting. This is Bloomberg's analysis here. And NBC has done a very colorful treatment too, where you can see just how tangled the web can get. These tech and AI companies, so interlocked financially, their speculative values so high, who knows what any of them is really worth?
It creates the illusion of something that's not entirely true, which is to say a company is dominant. Well, it's dominant because it's giving customers money to buy their products.
Goldman Sachs figures these so-called circular deals will account for somewhere around 15% of NVIDIA's sales next year. And when you think of it from OpenAI's point of view, its total company valuation right now is somewhere around $500 billion, give or take. An investment of $100 billion from NVIDIA, that's already a massive share of its overall worth and supporting a company that doesn't actually make any money.
Vis-a-vis the Wall Street Journal, OpenAI plans to lose $70+ billion in 3 years.
And this is where you can get into trouble because circular investments fueling wild speculative stock growth, that's not necessarily a problem, so long as the people pouring money in are reasonably confident of getting their money out. But there is such a huge gap between investment and revenue, where OpenAI has spending commitments worth more than $1 trillion, but it's not even profitable, and not everybody's confident it will soon find a way to be profitable, with the notable exception, of course, of the company itself, which is constantly trying to convince investors there's hope. Except, even if you set aside the astronomical cost to train something like ChatGPT, where you can spend $40,000 just on a single NVIDIA chip, multiplied tens of thousands of times over, with hundreds of millions more spent on power, cooling, real estate, these massive data centers, which can be more like small towns. Like, did you know, for example, more money is spent these days building data centers than all other manufacturing facilities combined? Even if you set all that aside, we still haven't talked about salaries, research, or even just the cost of every single query a ChatGPT client makes.
The companies that make these AI models, which are called LLMs or large language models, are profoundly money losing, like just so impressively money losing. For the most part, they actually lose more money the more customers they have.
Experts tell us pennies to dollars on every request, eating more money the more people use them because of the sky-high energy demands. So at what point do people start to question, whoa, are we putting too much money into this? Is the AI bubble about to burst?
The idea that, you know, at the other end, there'll be some kind of magical conclusion that justifies all the spending is what I call faith-based argument. It's like, I don't know what's coming, but whatever we do, it's going to justify all the spending. And it's like, well, fine, but you don't apply that logic in any other walk of life. So why should I listen to it here?
Ultimately, what drives the AI industry, powers it through hardship, is this promise of potential. That AI will give us automation, productivity, scientific discovery, better health outcomes, social outcomes, educational outcomes, the basis for entirely new industries.
To make this all work more broadly, they are still sort of telling the story of AGI, of a technology that is so versatile, so powerful, and so capable of many different types of labor that some way, somehow, it will pay for itself.
So, the thinking goes, there is no bubble here, only investment. Like, do we also think of building roads and tracks and bridges as bubbles because there's so much upfront cost with no return? Except, of course, there are still reasons to tread carefully. Unlike roads and rail, the billions spent building data centers don't have a particularly long shelf life.
Here you've just got giant structures full of thousands and thousands of chips that are just hot, working, and shortening their useful life. And on top of that, even if they weren't shortening their useful life, they become obsolete relatively quickly.
If I don't use a railroad for 5 years, it's still useful, right? But if I don't use a GPU for 5 years and it's sitting in a data center, it's a write-off.
So in a very important way, there is a deadline for all of this massive AI investment to generate a return. Fail to do that, the bubble pops and the stakes couldn't be higher.
It matters because we're already into the trillions of dollars, I argue, are being metastasized across the economy in a host of different forms.
Tech stocks represent almost half of the value of all American stocks. And American stocks, by value, represent more than half of all stocks on the planet. The world right now very much depends on its largest economy doing well. The so-called Magnificent Seven together, they're about the size of China's entire economy. NVIDIA alone is worth more than Japan. So if there is an AI bubble, it may not even need to fully burst for the consequences to be extraordinary. The world is invested in AI to an unprecedented degree, such that even a small shock could be very expensive.
Some analysts are likening the current situation to the dot-com bubble of the late 90s. In that case, stocks plunged nearly 80% and lost trillions in market value when the bubble finally burst. Coming up, frustration builds for hundreds of Torontonians forced out of their homes by a stubborn high-rise fire.
Every day is the same thing. They don't know how much years they're in the fire business, and they never see any fire like that.
Why firefighters are still battling the burn almost a week after it started. Next. Hundreds of people forced from their homes by a stubborn apartment fire in Canada's largest city.
We have never, in the history of the Toronto Fire Service, experienced a fire like this.
6 days into the battle, firefighters still struggle to access the burning material.
Our fire hoses can't even access the space provided.
Ashley Fraser breaks down why the complex and stubborn fire is so hard to put out.
So these two buildings in East Toronto have a fire between them, and it's been burning for 6 days now, forcing hundreds of residents to evacuate. But fire crews can't seem to put it out. So how is that possible?
This space is so tight, between 25 and 50 millimeters, that firefighters cannot directly access it. Complicating matters further, this gap contains compressed wood material which burns slowly, making progress extremely difficult.
So let's get into what's actually happening between these two buildings. I spoke to Sally Thompson, an engineer who's been working with condominium buildings since the 90s.
It's an interesting building because most people would look at it and see one building. 11 Thorncliffe is an L-shaped building and 21 Overley is a rectangular building, but they're right in direct contact with each other at one end. And it's that interface that I suspect is the problem.
Thompson says that in order to build one building right next to the other, they need to allow a small gap.
They need a gap between those two buildings so that structurally they can behave separately. And they're going to fill that with a fiberboard before they build the second wall, whether it's block or concrete, whatever it is, up against the original wall. The fire is in that narrow gap.
And complicating it further is the different sizes of these buildings.
The one building is much taller. The Overley building is taller, and the shorter building kind of comes into the side of it. And where they meet, that gap will be covered with a membrane flashing or sheet metal something, so the water doesn't go down in there. And basically, if I could remove that cap and kind of reach down, I could reach down for the full height of the building into this gap with something very narrow, but not with a human. And of course, the firefighters have no access to it.
This is the material.
So we don't know exactly the contents of this compressed material, but Thompson says filling the gap is common practice.
Normally an expansion joint is if this is a slab sitting on a ledge, I want to separate that concrete when I pour it. So I'm going to put some material here and here to prevent the two concretes from connecting. And that way the joint can always move. In this case, the joint happens to be, 10 or 12 stories tall, right? So it's the same product that we would use. It's just a really unusual joint. Like this condition probably exists at a few dozen buildings, if that, in the city, because we don't commonly build buildings right intimate to each other. A lot of the older downtown buildings, the sort of 2-story, 3-story stuff, there's a lot of those buildings built tight to one another. Those gaps tend to be more 4 to 6 inches.
But in this case, it's even smaller than that.
About 2 inches. Okay, you're talking this much space.
In a press conference, the Toronto Fire Chief said they are working with multiple engineers to figure out how to extinguish the fire. And that's because it's not your typical fire, it's just smoldering.
So it's burning by a process known as smoldering fire as opposed to flaming fire. There's a glow, there's no flame, it's slow spreading, and it's very persistent.
Now, the fire chief says this makes it especially hard to detect where the fire is.
We have never, in the history of the Toronto Fire Service, experienced a fire like this.
This is a very unique circumstance. Like most of the time it would be in a joint that's 8 inches tall, and if it caught on fire, it would burn and go away and nothing would matter. The only challenge here is that they just can't get to it.
Now, the residents in these buildings will remain evacuated until further notice, and the fire chief says it's not clear when the fire will be extinguished.
Now, the fire chief that Ashley was referring to there says engineering assessments of the buildings are underway and that the overall investigation could take between several weeks and a number of months. For the operators of city fleets, converting gas vehicles to electric could be the smartest path to cutting emissions. Johanna Wagstaff breaks down how retrofitting garbage trucks, buses, and fire trucks could help bridge the gap to a cleaner future.
If we can convert old gas cars into electric ones, and we can, why isn't everyone doing it? Sounds like the perfect climate solution. Reuse the frame, swap the engine, save the planet. But here's the thing. The total emissions savings is not as big as you might think. You're still manufacturing new batteries and wiring, and a full retrofit can cost anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000. That's more than most secondhand and even new EVs cost. So who should convert? Well, if you're a classic car enthusiast and you've got to replace your engine, it might actually make sense. That's where a lot of the conversion community started. And overseas, in Europe and China, conversions there are cheaper and easier thanks to looser regulations and smaller cars. Here, it's still a boutique business. But there is one place where conversions actually make a lot of sense: city fleets.
Really what's holding us back is being able to get the fleet. But we have changed a lot of our light vehicle fleets. The challenge is going to be the trucks that we have, the garbage trucks, the fire trucks, everything else.
Every major Canadian city is racing to meet their climate targets with deadlines coming fast. And one of the easiest ways to slash emissions is focusing on the vehicles burning the most fuel, driving the same routes every day. That's where companies like Blue Force come in, designing custom electric kits for existing work vehicles that don't exist as EVs yet.
Majority of the clients that we have been focused on have been the municipalities and the fleet-based organizations. They tend to have a bigger mass of the similar types of the vehicles, so it allows for that technology to be very well developed and enhanced and replicated throughout the rest of their fleets.
So no, we probably shouldn't convert every car on the road, but for fleets of large, high-emission vehicles in urban centers, conversions are a practical bridge for cities to reach their climate targets.
Of course, in converting their fleets to electric, cities will face the same challenge many EV drivers do: a lack of available charging infrastructure. Coming up, the family of a PEI man is continuing his holiday legacy after he died earlier this year.
I couldn't imagine the stuff being gone, so my brother said, no, I'm taking it over.
Why they decided to keep the 36-year tradition going. Next, in our moment. In North Rustico, PEI James Gallant, who is better known as Mr. Christmas, decked out his home every year since 1989. Gallant died earlier this year from cancer, but his children are continuing the 36-year-old holiday tradition in his memory, and that makes our moment.
This is one of the very first things he made. He was known as Mr. Christmas. When he passed, I had so many questions of what's going to happen with the Christmas house. I couldn't imagine the stuff being gone, so my brother said, no, I'm taking it over. There's about 30,000 lights. He made a big in memory of Mr. Christmas sign. It really gives us a lot of comfort. This definitely was my father's favorite. My dad had started decorating in 1989. I had a brother who passed away. My dad kind of just did it as a pastime to kind of try to get his mind off things. Gradually, he would add to it every year. He started making his own decorations. He really meant a lot to a lot of people. He loved it so much when he passed, and he said, I do it for the kids and that's enjoyment enough for me. That will always stick with me.
Now, when James first started putting up the lights, it would take 3 to 4 days, but in the past 10 years, he'd have to start in August to get them all in place. Meant a lot to him, meant a lot to his family, and to the people of PEI. Great tradition. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Erica Johnson in Vancouver. Take care.